Well, hello everyone. I hope you are having a good Monday morning slash afternoon. It's cloudy today and I cannot wait for the sunshine to come out, but I hope that this video greets you well. Today we are covering Galatians chapter 5, verses 1 through 12. And today it's kind of going to change a little bit what Paul is trying to do throughout this letter. Instead of giving these big theological talks and issues of how we have this freedom in the gospel, he's just going to go straight out and say, no, you do have this freedom in the gospel, so stop doing whatever else you're doing. And so I think chapters 5 and chapter 6 of Galatians will be a very big encouragement to you, and it'll get a little bit more practical in ways in which we can see the ways that we're living out the freedom of the gospel. And so today I just want to begin by reading verses 1 through 3 of chapter 5. This is what it says. It is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Stand firm then, and do not let yourselves be burdened again by a yoke of slavery. I want to stop right there real quick and say, here it is. Paul again is continuing this defense of the freedom that we have in the gospel. He's saying that it is for freedom that Christ has set us free. What Christ did on the cross set us free from the burden not only of sin, but this yoke of slavery, as he says in verse 1. And he says to stand firm. Do not be burdened again by the yoke of slavery, but stand firm. Put your feet in the ground and do not be moved. Stand firm on this truth that what Christ has done for you has set you free from the burden of the yoke of slavery, and now you are allowed to live in freedom. Then continuing in verses 2 through 3, it says this: Mark my words. I, Paul, tell you that if you let yourselves be circumcised, Christ will be of no value to you at all. Again, I declare to every man who lets himself be circumcised that he is obligated to obey the whole law. Okay, so this is pretty crazy here because Paul is saying that those who circumcise themselves to try to remain under this Abrahamic covenant, they can't even follow the whole law in the first place. So there's no reason even to try and keep obeying that covenant. Instead, live in the freedom that Christ has given you, because there's no way that you can follow the whole law completely in and of itself. You will fail at that. And Paul is trying to make that point here. And I want to continue reading verses 4 through 6. This is what it says. You who are trying to be justified by the law have been alienated from Christ. You have fallen away from grace. For through the Spirit we eagerly await by faith the righteousness for which we hope. Verse 6, for in Christ Jesus neither circumcision nor uncircumcision has any value. But right here, listen to this. The only thing that counts is faith expressing itself through love. Okay, so right here, he's saying circumcision or uncircumcision, it doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is our faith expressed through love in Christ. And the thing about that word faith is we sometimes don't truly understand what I think faith is. We sometimes think it's just an intellectual thing. It's just this belief in something that we cannot see. And at some points, yes, that is true. That is what faith is. But faith is also, there's this tendency in this word to ascribe action to it. That faith is not just this trust and this mere intellectual thing. Instead, it's an action word. It's this enacted loyalty to Jesus. And so right here, Paul is saying, no, faith is an expression. Like, it's not just this intellectual thing. It's not just this trust in Jesus, although it is mainly that, but it's also this expression, this action of our belief in Jesus. And then he continues on in verses 7 through 12, talking about how those who are trying to misdirect you and make you believe that you have to be circumcised, well, they're wrong and you should not believe in them. Matter of fact, as verse 12 says, as for those agitators, I wish they would go the whole way and emasculate themselves. So he gets a little bit descriptive here as he's talking, but he's saying none of that matters because you cannot follow the law in its entirety. You cannot follow it wholly. And so you truly should put your faith in Christ, because in him alone you have this freedom, and you don't have to be under this burden, this yoke of slavery of trying to follow the law all the way. Instead, Christ sets you free from that burden. And so as I was reading through this text, this was the reflection question that I came up with today, and it's this: how are you expressing your faith today? Again, how are you expressing your faith today? Because remember, faith isn't just this intellectual thinking. It's an enacted loyalty. It's expression of our love for Jesus. Now, we've seen Jesus' love for us, and because of that love, we should want to do something back. And so how are you expressing your faith today? Is it trusting in God in difficult times? Maybe that is what it is. Maybe it's that intellectual and heart trust in Jesus, that although you are in a difficult time, you know that he is here with you. Or maybe it's texting or calling someone that you haven't talked to in a while and just telling them, hey, I love you, I'm praying for you, and I hope that you're doing well. Or maybe it's, for some of us students, maybe it's doing the laundry and dishes without our parents asking us to do it. And I know that our parents would love if we did the dishes or laundry without them having to ask us. Or maybe it's cleaning our room, or whatever it may be. How are you expressing your faith today? Because it's not just an intellectual thing. It's also an expression, an action, an enacted loyalty to Jesus. So how are you expressing your faith today? Whatever it is, make sure you do it, because that is one way to show our faith towards Jesus. I hope this message gets to you well. I love you all, and I'll talk to you on Wednesday.